are people too late to Bitcoin? No, absolutely not. And I think that comes from a fiat mindset. I don't think people that ask that are unserious people per se, but I do think that needs to be corrected. I've met so many
Mm,
people that say, I bought Bitcoin at $10 and I sold it at $1,000, or I bought Bitcoin at 5,000, I sold it 15,000, I tripled my money. And it's
mm.
like, it's I don't know if you want me to get into the black hole singularity metaphor, but that's basically what it is. It's like you're jumping out of the black hole just to fall in again at a higher price.
Mm,
With
mhm,
Bitcoin,
mhm, mhm.
if if you're or let's say the boat metaphor, if the price of lifeboats is designed to go up forever, both as number one, the
Mm.
Titanic sinks, but also number two, as the lifeboats grow. The lifeboats get bigger, the lifeboats get better, there's more people in the lifeboats. The value of those lifeboats in relation to the sinking ship goes up exponentially. It's like,
Mhm.
why on earth would you take profits in terms of that seat of the lifeboat to get back on the ship? Like it's
Right. Right.
nonsensical, and
Yes.
so in the same way, again, earlier, like the bell curve, the people over here are bullish on Bitcoin to
Yeah.
100,000, and they'll cash out and sell.
Yeah.
Then you have the crazy people like Robert Breedlove and Luke Broyles that are like, yeah, Bitcoin's going to 10 million or $100 million, and that's bearish. and,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll never sell. To people, it doesn't make any sense
Yeah.
because they're thinking of the locomotive in terms of horses. It doesn't make
That's
any
right.
comprehensive,
It's the
any,
denominator. It's the
yeah,
denominator. It's the dollar denominator. It's when the understanding that there's so many memes about this, right? There's the Matrix meme where it's Morpheus talking to Neo. It's like, so you're telling me one day I can sell my Bitcoin for $100 million? And Morpheus is like, no, I'm telling you, Neo, when you're ready, you won't have to. It's like the frame of the US dollar is what's going away. So even when we say Bitcoin goes to $100 million, we're not saying that you're going to want to sell it at that point for $100 million. It's like the US dollar is on its path to irrelevance in that situation. There's going to come a point where pricing things in US dollars just won't make any sense anymore. Just like pricing things in any hyperinflating currency eventually doesn't make any sense and they get repriced into something that's not hyperinflating. And the weird thing about Bitcoin is that everything hyperinflates against Bitcoin. So at some point you shift your frame from dollars or whatever currency to Bitcoin out of necessity. You can't, there's no other way around it, right? It is the lifeboat to draw on our analogy. Another way I've put this is that people often accuse Bitcoin of being a pump and dump scheme, but there is no better asset to dump it into. There is no better asset. So Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin? It's a pump scheme. It just pumps. That's what it does. It just goes up against goods and services forever because it's absolutely scarce and
yeah.
nothing else
And,
like
and,
that exists.
and I think the point to add there, that I fully agree with that it's a pump scheme, but I think people are hesitant against it because they're used to Ponzi schemes, and Ponzi schemes are manipulation tactics by humans.
Yeah.
And Bitcoin is not that because it's not controlled by humans. And
It's
so
immune to
the
manipulation.
pump, exactly.
Yeah.
And so the pump in Bitcoin's pump scheme is that the scheme is the whole global economy. The
Yeah.
pump that causes Bitcoin's pump is the total cumulative innovation and progress
Yes.
of the human race. That's the pump that causes Bitcoin's pump scheme.
Right.
It's not some twisted metric that
Yes.
forces Bitcoin to go up. And I think that's what people misunderstand.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a great one. Yeah, pump has a very negative manipulative connotation, but what we're saying here is that all successful entrepreneurial efforts are accretive to Bitcoin, right? So everything that improves human productivity improves the purchasing power of the hardest money in the world, and the hardest money in the world is Bitcoin. I like to you were describing like, and this gets into Jeff Booth's work a little bit, the debasing of currency, right? So as productivity goes up, all of a sudden there's this additional purchasing power for a central bank to harvest or steal through the debasement of the currency, and people won't even they'll be none the wiser, right? If productivity goes up, prices should have gone down, but if you print just enough money to keep prices even, or better yet, target your 2% inflation as they tend to do, then people are none the wiser, or they don't feel the pain as much. But you get in a very, and when you consider this in combination with the fiat incentives for debt accumulation, right? When currency is being debased, every market actor is incentivized to borrow strong dollars, pay back weaker dollars. So we get massive debt accumulation, as we see in the world today, 350% plus global debt to GDP. You end up with this irreconcilable conflict of debasement or theft needing to outpace innovation. And if innovation's moving exponentially, as we've described, then obviously that can't go on forever, right? At some point, if debasement goes exponential, that is by definition hyperinflation. So when the thing hyperinflates and it's no longer useful, it's no longer meaningful, then people move out of the hyperinflating money into the money that is not hyperinflating. And so as political money self-destructs, we get this really bad short-term problem, right? Hyperinflation, namely, like it's painful. It's the economy has to adjust, and just study any hyperinflation. It's a really bad situation. People go crazy. You can't trust each other. You can't engage in long-term trade. You can't save. All these really bad consequences. But the long-term consequence of that is really good with Bitcoin, because after these things die in hyperinflation, well, you've reset to a Bitcoin standard where price signals are honest, right? People are disincentivized from stealing from one another. The political barrel of a gun is game theoretically less useful in all of these things we've described. And so then you're in this world where you hold Bitcoin. All you have to do is hold Bitcoin as savings, and you're effectively holding a non-counterparty index fund on all successful entrepreneurial efforts from now until forever. Like it's a mind-blowing asset, right? There's nothing like gold. Gold is the closest thing we've ever had to that. It's like just hold gold over time, and no matter what's happening politically around you, the gold's going to be valuable, right? And the gold's going to continue to be more valuable as humans become more productive. Problem with gold, of course, is that it has all these vulnerabilities. You can mine the ocean floor, you can mine an asteroid, you can make it in a lab, it can be physically stolen from you. And Bitcoin just sort of obviates all of that, and you end up with this perfect, pristine asset that appreciates in tandem with human knowledge and productivity.
Thank you so much for watching my content and being a supporter of mine. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun for me to do, and it's really meaningful to know that so many people are enjoying my content and learning about Bitcoin. I think it's so important for people to get off zero. In addition to getting off zero, it is really critical. It is really important that you also begin taking self-custody of your sats and of your Bitcoin. This is because if you have Bitcoin on an exchange or you don't have proper self-custody, this is going to be a massive problem for you in the future, most likely. If Bitcoin starts having rapid periods of appreciation and there are rapid spikes in demand for Bitcoin education, and for Bitcoin advocates and advisors, it's going to be increasingly important that you have self-custody of those coins. So my message to you is please consider getting that self-custody. Now, you can do that on your own. There are plenty of free tutorials online. There's plenty of great work like that. But if you want somebody to help you with self-custody, if you want somebody to help you take cold storage of your Bitcoin, of your Satoshis, if you want somebody to help you set up a multi-sig vault, to set up an estate plan, to set up a plan for you as a person, an individual, as a business owner, as a charity, whatever the case, I work at the Bitcoin Advisor, and I'm happy to say that I really enjoy it. I love working with my clients. My job is literally to help people buy Bitcoin and secure it properly for years, decades, and generations to come. So if you want to learn about my services at the Bitcoin Advisor and what we do, you should click the link in the description. Here you can read a bit about what I do. You can book a free consultation with me. You can book a free meeting with me. I'll send you lots of free complimentary paperwork explaining how multi-sig vaults work, cold storage, giving you all the education you need. Everything's fully open source. What we do, our main goal is education, helping get coins off exchanges, and people be able to not lose sleep at night when they buy and secure their Bitcoin. So you can feel free to book a meeting with me. The first one is free and complimentary, just to figure out what your priorities are and get that adjusted. But if that's something that could be used to you, I really highly encourage you to take self-custody, whether that's with me or not. Please just do it. But for the many of you that probably will eventually want a multi-sig collaborative custody vault, the Bitcoin Advisor could be the place to go. And so click the link in the description, check that out. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty strong argument that we're not late to Bitcoin. Still yes. Very early, I would say.
And I think, yeah, I think it's still very early. And amusing I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, is that people either learn and change their behavior from pain and curiosity. And we happen to be, again, that very narrow window in history where the majority of people that have learned about Bitcoin has been through curiosity, not through pain. And I do think most people will not get off zero. They will not get that lifeboat. They will not buy Bitcoin until the pain has become so insurmountable. At 2% inflation, the pain is there, but it's not bad enough that people are in panic mode when it comes to their monetary security. And so I think the majority of pain that is coming is not from people's pain of, oh, I wish I bought Bitcoin when it was cheaper. I think the majority of the pain is going to be from people that bought Bitcoin, sold it for 10x higher, and then it goes 1,000x or whatever. I think that's where
Right.
most of the pain is. And so, thinking on a shorter term here, I think the biggest telling factor that we're very early is that if we assume that the majority of people that experience that pain and that hard lesson through Bitcoin are people that buy it, hold it for a year, and then sell it for 10x or whatever, most of that people haven't even bought, and so I think if that assumption is true, then I think by that alone, that just shows how early we are. That
Yeah.
most people are yet to put their hand on the on the hot stove to then take it off and then learn the lesson and then better understand it. We haven't even gotten to that point, and I think that's people have trouble understanding. It's like $10 million of Bitcoin is not a hyper Bitcoinized price. That's still like
Yes.
95% of the world hasn't even begun to touch the hot stove and learn the lesson so that 5 years later they actually can understand and allocate properly to Bitcoin.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And just question your frame of reference. If you're only thinking in terms of dollars, then maybe there's another frame to which to perceive the world, through which to perceive the world.
Well, in Lira, I
Go
was
ahead.
just going to say, in Lira, Bitcoin is 800,000. And in the Lebanese pound, it's 400 million officially, and unofficially, it's more like 4 billion. So it's like, I made a video on that recently, and some people are like, "Oh, Luke, that's so dumb. We're not, stop saying that. That's a cheap tactic." And it's like, no, it's not a cheap tactic. Why would I value Bitcoin in Lira or peso or pound, and why would I value it in dollar? You wouldn't say a stock market is going up in terms of a hyperinflationary currency because you're saying, oh, well, your unit of measure is corrupted. It's like, yeah, I'd say the same thing with the dollar. It's a complete oxymoron.
Yeah, it's tricky, right? We don't stop to consider the aperture through which we're looking at the world often. And money is one of those very important apertures. We're all conditioned and accustomed to looking at the world through dollars. Most of us, obviously, different countries, different currencies. But that frame of reference is what is being jeopardized by the existence of Bitcoin. So you have to kind of take off the glasses through which you're looking at the world and examine the glasses themselves. And it's a meta cognitive leap for a lot of people, but it's an important one if you're going to get your head around all this.